This is the School Success Podcast, a podcast for school leaders to learn from other school leaders what's working and what's not, and to get inspiration and encouragement, as well as strategies to grow school enrollment, connect with families, retain teachers, recruit teachers, and everything in between. You guys are heroes, and I cannot thank you enough for pouring into this next generation that's coming behind us. My goal is you will take at least one thing away from every episode that you can take back to your school to make it better than it is right now. Please enjoy the School Success Podcast. This podcast is brought to you by the Herzog Foundation.
Time for school.
Hey, School Success Makers. Welcome to another edition of the School Success Podcast. I'm your host, Mitchell Slater. I'm joined by a good friend out of the great state of Arkansas, Ryan Gorman, who is the head of school of Anthem Classical Academy. And this is a special podcast because not all the time do I get to interview people that I actually really like and that I actually have met in person. And I've done both of those with Ryan here. He's a great guy. Great family man. They're doing a great job with Anthem. They're in Arkansas. And so this will be a fun one because I actually know him, which makes him way more fun for interviews. So before I waste any of his thunder, steal any of that away from him, I'll pass it off to him to introduce himself, and then we will dive right in. So Ryan, welcome to the podcast.
Mitch, thanks so much. It's great to get connected. I know we've been trying to get this on the calendar for a little bit, and we're both busy, but proud to call you my friend and enjoy the work that you're doing and helping us, but also just a chance to put this out into the school leader community and happy to be a part of it today. So as you mentioned, my name is Ryan Gorman. I was the founding head of school here at Anthem Classical Academy in Fayetteville, Arkansas. We had a founding team that started together in about 2020, but BC, before COVID, and the world thought to lose its mind and realized that the educational options here in Northwest Arkansas had largely just been to the local districts. There were a couple other options that were there, but specifically in our county, there's two that make up the most chunk of this. There were fewer in our county, and we recognized that we wanted to go ahead and put some things in place. Founding group came together. I was part of that. Our current director of curriculum, our current board chair, and a couple others were able to join with us and launch Anthem back in the fall of 2021. And we have been operating ever since and have grown now considerably. We started at K through 5th grade. We're now K through 8th grade with plans to go all the way through K-12 in the coming years. And so we are just a month or so into our 4th year of operation, and we're excited about what the Lord's doing here and how our staff is really just championing our mission and bringing it to Northwest Arkansas.
That's awesome. I have so many great questions for you, but I always start with the same one. And so you don't know this one's coming. So it's really on the fly. So I always start with this. If I was to visit Fayetteville, Arkansas, which I haven't been to Fayetteville, Arkansas before, and I know we've talked about this because you hyped it up pretty good, and it was pretty good when you talked about it with me. So, but if you said, Mitchell, you got to eat this and do this when you're in Fayetteville, what am I going to have to do?
You got to eat this, man. We have some really great foodie options coming in. Wright's Barbecue is a top. I think it's a top 30, maybe top 50 restaurant by USA Today. Yep. All the diner and dives and all the different ratings. Wright's Barbecue is a big one. The original one is the one you got to go to. It's where grease is still on the walls. You can still feel it that way. There's some other good ones and they're great, but that's in Johnson, just up the road from us. That's a good one you got to eat. The burn-ins are phenomenal. So okay. I would say eat that. There's some other ones in Bentonville that I would strongly recommend as well. Conifer in Bentonville, Atlas and Fayetteville are some favorites. Those are a little upscale, but they're fun. They're good. Okay. Good environment for us. Okay, let me think. Man, do in Northwest Arkansas. There's a lot of great things to do. The great part is we're a pretty good sized metro area, so there's a lot of the standard to do things. With the university, it's always fun to get involved in something with the Razorbacks. Go to a game, check some things out. There's a lot of life that happens around that, but within 30 minutes of town, there's multiple state and national parks. You can get out and lose cell phone service and go on a bike trail or get on a kayak. And I think getting out and enjoying the beauty, but the modernity kind of all of a city, but also ability to get out and enjoy nature is probably the best thing to do. I would say that, right?
Okay.
Get a good meal, go out, enjoy, come back in and enjoy a little bit of nightlife or college life. And it's a lot of fun.
I think there's like some waterfalls you mentioned, like waterfalls and swimming holes.
A ton. Yeah, there's quite a few.
That intrigued me the most.
Drive 45 minutes, 90 minutes, and you could get yourself on a hike to enjoy some pretty spectacular waterfalls that seem to be hidden in plain sight, but they're majestic and they're great. That's a great time to get out and enjoy creation.
Awesome. Well, thank you. See, now I use this for reference. If I ever visit these areas, I listen to the podcast and go, all right, out of the horse's mouth, here's where I got to go. And here's what I got to do. So
that's right.
So jumping right in, I would love, so we've had obviously so many different guests on the podcast. We've had Montessori schools, charter schools, public schools, private schools, Christian schools, classical schools, all these different ones. I would love to, and I usually try and ask this when I have somebody that's on something very specific. And I know you and I have talked about this specific question before when we've had dinner, but what is classical education, specifically classical Christian education? Those that you meet a new family that's coming in or somebody's listening on the podcast, they keep hearing about classical because there is a big wave of that happening right now, which is exciting. What is that kind of like that quick elevator pitch that you give somebody to say, hey, this is what classical is?
Sure. There's a lot of definitions. I think the running joke is if you have 10 classical educators in a room and you ask for the definition, I think you'll end up with 14. And so that's a lot of fun. A lot of fun with that.
True statement.
Yeah, I would say the elevator pitch side of that is classical education and specifically classical Christian education is an education in humility, one that finds who a student could and should grow to become. How do we align our affections with that which is true, good, and beautiful? Those are some buzzwords that we toss around in classical education quite a bit. But it's really about cultivating and pointing the affections of students towards those things, specifically what is true, good, and beautiful found in the person of Christ. In the Christian context, there is a virtuous form of classical education that exists in the charter space. But by nature of how charter schools are functioning, they have to stop short of that objective truth that we know with Christ and with the church. I would say the point of and the easy way to think about classical education is we care more about who a student becomes at 40 than what they score on their ACT at 18. The greenhouse effect of or the greenhouse concept maybe is a better way to put it, of growing deep, strong roots while in a opportunity to grow and move as they encounter good works of literature, as they encounter ideas from history, to read them charitably, understand that all humans are flawed, and that when they get to those events, if they get to those texts, they should see them as trying to make sense of the world, but biblical wisdom and biblical truth will ring out in the end. And so we train students how to think so that they are well equipped for that world that they are launched into when they leave that greenhouse. So we expose them to heat at times and to drought at times and to wind and pressure, and either through the ideas or through the rigor that kind of sometimes can come up in the texts that we engage with, or the concepts, or the challenges that we put in front of them. But it's to deepen those roots, to strengthen their branches, and really be well on their way to flourishing as they leave that K through 12 experience. So long answer, longer than an elevator pitch. Maybe it was a tall building.
It was lots of stuff.
But the idea is how do we cultivate what is true, good, and beautiful in the hearts and minds of students, and do so from a historical perspective where those who have gone before us have wrestled with the same questions, and we do it in the context that is today's world.
Hey, school success makers, just a really quick break from the episode to highlight our amazing sponsors over at America's Christian Credit Union. They are celebrating 65 years of service this year, and they provide essential school banking services and a tuition financing program for schools looking to reduce their risk and administrative burden. And you guys can find out all about them on their website, americaschristiancu.com/schools. That's americaschristiancu.com/schools. They are amazing over there, and I always like to say. If you're a school that collects tuition and you have a hard time collecting all of tuition at the end of the year, maybe it comes around May, June, you're like, man, we only got collected 95 or 98% of what tuition was owed to our school. One of the things you can do is have your parents get a tuition financing loan through the credit union, and then they pay the credit union directly, and you get your funds up front at the beginning of the year as the school. So you don't have to chase people throughout the year, and you can focus on what you do best, and that is loving and educating your students. And it doesn't cost your school anything to do it. So check them out online, americaschristiancu.com/schools. All right, back to the show. So I hear some of so I love classical, and I've continued to just learn from folks like you and others just more about it. And so I know one of the things when I've talked to people about classical, I feel like the natural pushback, the natural question I get from them regularly is, wait, why are we reading all these old books? Why do we care about all these old things? Like, why not we like take what we have now? We know so much more now. So what would your I'm sure you've gotten that plenty of times from parents coming in like, wait, why are we telling them and I would love to hear, and then maybe a separate answer for that, the Latin. I feel that's probably the second one I hear about. Like, why are we learning Latin? Why do we need to learn Latin? I would love to hear. I think they're all good questions. And so I'm continuing to learn. So what would your answer be for those?
The idea of the good books are the things that have probably stood the test of time, right? And so we see them not because we have just a rejection of something that's modern, but we can find ourselves easily captured by the tyranny of the moment or the tyranny of the urgent. And so what is in front of us at this moment can often skew us to something that is that may or may not be proven to be good. And so that's something that we have to hold that against. And so we look at objective truth through scripture, and then we say, where have these ideas been wrestled and challenged and explored and debunked or refuted and or reinforced? And if we see those things from a historical perspective, we see that the conversation is really still about, what does it mean to be a good man or good woman? And what does it mean to live well? And those who have spent time really sitting with those questions, and then also those ideas that have transcended a generation or two or three or even multiple, allow for us to learn from great minds that have gone before us and see how the current thinking ties into one that has proven to be good for humanity over time. And so that's one of the reasons why we read some of these greater, older texts. But some of them are not, in light of history, are really not that old, right? So C.S. Lewis wrote in the 20th century, and in the grand scheme of history, we're reading things that are not, yes, we'll read from the ancient Greeks, but we're also reading from modern. Because it wasn't written last week, it doesn't mean it's not modern. We probably need to broaden our horizon of that a little bit. Ironically, didn't mean to do this, but it's a great segue, right? We don't believe in chronological snobbery. We don't believe that because we're in the modern world, we know better than those who were in antiquity or in the ancient world or in the medieval world. There can be a case made for that they were far better able to focus on an idea than we are. When you look at attention spans and you look at distractions and you look at busyness of life, to sit with an idea usually is one where it's truly better refined. I think now there's a little bit of I have to make a claim and I have to make it right now. And I have to do it with the only information and tools available to me. And if I don't make it in 30 seconds, then I'm viewed as incompetent. Where in reality, to think charitably and think deeply requires time. Our modern culture doesn't do that well. So that's probably a better answer for the texts that we read. Interestingly enough, I think as a math person, I'll just kind of throw this caveat in there. It's not a question you asked, but interestingly, there's always this pushback on the ancient texts, but never a pushback on the ancient mathematics. We never question the fact that Pythagoras was Greek, and we're good with the Pythagorean theorem, and we don't question the fact that that holds true. But, well, because it wasn't written last week and on the New York Times bestseller list, then we're reading the old things. And so we have a skewed version of that, even in a modern STEM, AI, technology-oriented world, that we appreciate the truth that establishes through mathematics, but we seem to somehow forget the objectivity of the good when we think about literature. So
that's good. I like that. That's good.
something to just kind of put in people's minds. I've taught math here for the first 3 years. This is the first year I'm not in the classroom. And so I get a chance to still help our teachers in that, but that's one that I always kind of push to. Latin is a fun, different conversation. We actually teach French as a modern foreign language for our kindergarten through our 5th grade. And the idea of it is not so that we produce French speakers. They're not fluent by the end of that time. That's never our goal. We tell parents that's never our goal. However, it contributes to the humility of the idea of language. And so language is an expression and outflow of culture as well. And so we see some things that are unique inside of a language that reflect the culture that it presents. French is a fantastic language. Spanish has a lot of practicality, but we were blessed from our founding with a PE and French teacher. And we watched our curriculum integrate when we look at artwork and we look at Renaissance thinkers and we look at, there's a lot of French overlap between these things, composers. But the idea of our French and our modern foreign language program in K through 5th grade is one of wonder, one of appreciation, and one of humility. And it's designed to think and expand our mind. Our first year, a founding family sent me an article, and it's still one that I haven't referenced lately, but it's a good thought, is that there will be more French-speaking Christians in Africa by I think it's the year 2040, than there will be population in the United States. Mm-hmm. And so and this idea of, the kingdom is much bigger than me. And if we can get that at 7 years old, and that heaven won't speak English, or contrary to many in the Christian church world, they won't speak Latin either. That we're told that there will be resounding language and song from the nations. And so the idea is that there's hymns in French, and that there's songs of praise in French, and there's songs of praise in Spanish, and there's songs of praise in other languages around the world. We have the opportunity to study French here. And the idea for that is for students to come to it humbly and know that there's another way to communicate an idea that's not in the language I grew up with. And there is a kingdom work to the nations. And it produces that education and humility that we're really after. So that's the French caveat. The Latin piece is one of study and appreciation, and also diligence. Sometimes Latin is not just for the pragmatic. Everybody will say that it's for the ACT testing or the SAT vocabulary, or it develops these ideas inside of a student. Sometimes it is simply, I'm going to do something that's challenging, and I'm going to develop a discipline and a habit inside of it that I know is good for me. And language, especially one that is not modernly used or used in the culture around you on broad sense, is one there's not a lot of resources to know it kind of bail us out of that hard work. So that's a piece that matters too. Yes, there are tremendous impacts to the ability to understand language, to understand syntax, to understand grammar, to put pieces together in certain ways, declension work, things of those courses that require a great deal of attention and a great deal of preparation for the way students can think and will interact with language over time. But it's also one that requires more of them than for them. And it requires them to step into and lean into those things. I think the last piece with Latin, specifically in the classical Christian context, is that we have the ability to sing, read, and pray in the same language that had been used for centuries prior to us. And so, yes, on the K5 side, we hear French prayers and French hymns, and we intentionally go in and hear, our French teacher does a good job. We hear a Creole adaptation of things, and we hear Spanish songs, and we want to hear and develop those because of that King Christ for the nations idea and humility to us. But then there's also something unifying about saying the Lord's Prayer or singing the original O come, Emmanuel in Latin, knowing how many thousands upon millions of Christians have sung that song or those prayers in that original language, that one contributes to the humility that we come to the cross with, but two, there's a thread that's bigger than me, and it's a redemptive one throughout history. And to join with it is a posture that we want to put in front of our students and ask them to participate in.
Hey, school success makers, Mitchell here. I just want to take a really quick break from the show to give a big, huge shout out to the 𝑒𝑟𝑜𝑔 Foundation. I absolutely love the 𝑒𝑟𝑜𝑔 Foundation. I've been friends and partners with them for a couple years now, but we're bringing it to a whole new level. And I'm excited to share that our very own School Success podcast is now featured on the 𝑒𝑟𝑜𝑔 Foundation Podcast Network. The 𝑒𝑟𝑜𝑔 Foundation is a powerhouse of resources designed to support schools like yours, from free training events through the 𝑒𝑟𝑜𝑔 Foundation Institute to their incredible online news publication, The Lion, and of course, our new podcast, Home. They have everything you need to stay informed and inspired. And if you're dreaming of starting your own Christian school or co-op, don't miss their online course, Schoolbox. It's a fantastic resource to help you get started on the right foot. At School Success, we're proud to partner with the 𝑒𝑟𝑜𝑔 Foundation to bring you these valuable tools and insights. So visit 𝑒𝑟𝑜𝑔foundation.com to explore all they have to offer. Trust me, you won't want to miss out on these amazing opportunities for growth and success. And I love all the people over there, and I know you guys will too. So please go check them out, and you won't be disappointed. Now, back to the show. That was the best argument for the Latin that I've heard, Ryan. That was very good, because I feel like that's not well articulated from the ones I've asked that question to. Sure. It's not. I'm like, they'll finish, and I'll go, I still don't see it. Like, I don't see what you're seeing. That I love that, because it's like, history is powerful of like, hey, we want to know where we came from to know where our future is going. And so like, even just my 5-year-old son doing this, like, hey, this is perfect example. Today is his birthday. And every year when I was a kid, my dad took me out for birthday breakfast on my birthday, and we got to go wherever I wanted to go. And we got to spend time, just my dad and me. And so I've done that with him since he was 1. We've gone for birthday breakfast. And so we went out today, and I said, hey, you know why we do this, right? And he's like, why? I said, because your papa did this for me, and I loved it as a kid. I'm doing this for you. And this is like one-on-one time with dad and son. And so just like that piece of like, we're doing this because people did it before us, and here's why. And reminding them of that, which is really powerful.
Yep.
I love that. That's really good. All right. Well, this perfect segue into just talking about, I want to hear more about Anthem and what you guys are doing as you guys are entering. This is entering year 4.
Yep, we're a month in year 4.
Very good. Well, I would love to hear. I'm sure there's plenty, but I know there's a lot of good things going on, which we'll jump into in a little bit. But what are some of the current challenges you guys are up against right now, and then what are you doing to combat some of the challenges you're in right now?
That's a good question. We are still in the founding stage. We oftentimes use the idea of child development. So you bring up a 5-year-old. Happy birthday to your little one, by the way. But we bring up those milestones as pretty good indicators, and they feel very, very accurate. Our school is now sleeping through the night. We're working on toilet training. So that's an improvement, but we're also toddling pretty hard. And so there are things that as we are growing, we've become, not by nature of neglect, simply by nature of our limbs are bigger. And so we're a little more clumsy in some things that we otherwise were pretty tight on in the first couple of years. And that's not a problem. It's just a growing opportunity where we've shifted from, I've mastered crawling, or I've mastered the cruising around a table, and now I'm trying to walk on my own, and my feet get caught on the carpet sometimes, and I go down, and we kind of have to brush ourselves off, or there's pieces of that. So we use the child metaphor. Ironically enough, a friend of ours that's been a good mentor school to us compared themselves to a zit-faced teenager when we were getting started. And so there was a nice metaphor that worked there. And I carried it on and thought, well, we're an infant, so here we go. But that's worked out well. I kind of get some more specifics as I work in metaphors and word pictures. We've grown considerably. And so we had 17 students our first day in 2021. We walked into this school year with 122.
Wow.
And so we now have 2 sections of kindergarten, 2 sections of first grade, and then 1 section of everything else growing up till 8th. And it's filling in really, really well and quite beautifully. The families that have been brought here are tremendous. But some of the challenges are that this is a curriculum that their students going into 4th or 5th grade have never encountered before, and they've never had to think or develop this way. And so they're struggling, and there's challenges to, this is new and hard. And that develops how do I do this well? And I don't mean struggling in the cloudy, gloomy day and everything's terrible. It's just, oh, this is work, and we have excellence in our mission statement and we pursue it. But the idea of that is the giving our best in light of what is perfect, knowing that we'll never achieve it, but it's the idea of how do we pursue it? How do we try to attain it and recognize self-acceptance when we are incomplete, but also self-awareness to where we can improve and grow. And the way that our students are having to interact with that, the pursuit of excellence requires struggle. And sometimes that's a new concept for some of our students. And so there's that tension that shows up, I think, is one as our school's grown. I think another piece is just scale and volume. We've been a pretty thin administrative structure up until this year. And so we are recognizing communication avenues have to be redefined and re-clarified to better meet the needs and address the things that are going on with students and with parents. I think another piece is internally. By the growth of the students, that also means the staff has grown by that. And so we've had to invest very carefully, very well, I think we've done, but very carefully in, there were 7 new staff members that joined our school this year,
Wow.
Which is it's a 30%, 35% increase for us. And so we have to be very intentional about, this is who we are. This is our culture. This is how we do things. And we want to invite you into that process. And we want you to be a part of this. We believe in who you are as a staff member and as a professional. And that requires a great level of attention. And so that's been something we've navigated with back to school training, pursuing professional development for staff, trying to think of some other things that have just presented challenge other than simple volume has been a big piece. And then there's been some academic entry points that have shown to be particularly challenging. Our students have risen well. Our teachers have provided great support for those. But those are things that show up about this time of year where a student's new to us and had not had the background of the year before or a couple years before of doing things the way we do them with regards to mathematics or writing or some other things that we do. And they have to work through that tension and develop that perseverance on their own, which is a wonderful virtue for them to work through. But sometimes that, as I mentioned in that greenhouse metaphor, sometimes that's an exposure to drought that can hurt, and you can feel, I just want to feel nourished. And yes, but if we don't, then we don't develop the reserve of perseverance when it's necessary. And so that's the continual tension there. So I think if I could probably broad brush the first few years, those are some things that we are particularly seeing going into year 4 with the size that we are and the scale and the growth that we've experienced in ways that we're trying to address it. Increase volunteer community, increase parent communication channels, provide parents opportunities for them to get involved and get plugged in and get information in other ways. It's been a really great opportunity for us to grow beyond just number, grow in practice and grow in all of our approaches to what we do.
You feel like so far the parent engagement has been really, really higher than your expectations for parent involvement?
I would say yes. There's been interesting dynamics to that. Even within 4 years, we can kind of see some emergence in patterns. I don't know if you've had a chance to meet. I've tried not to name drop too much in the conversation, but Catherine Savage at Philadelphia Classical School, I had a chance to talk with her a couple times over the last couple summers, and providing some great wisdom to this. But she said about year 3, year 4, you'll start feeling a shift from those founding families who wanted to get in. They couldn't see the school. They just saw the vision and they wanted to be a part of it. And so they rolled up their sleeves and they were willing to do any piece of it. And then you'll see this subtle, if you're not careful, maybe it'll be more than subtle, shift to, well, why doesn't the school have this? And it's not an indicting question. It's just you will look more established than you are. And then there's the expectation that you have the things that a more established school has, and you're just not there yet. That's a piece that we're starting to feel in just some ways. And so I don't mean that as an indictment on our families. Our families have been tremendous and an immense blessing from the Lord. We've prayed over each and every application that's come in the door, each and every family that we want to partner with. But we ask and we say, there is a way that our school functions and operates that we ask that you participate. We don't require volunteer hours. I know some do. That's conversation that shows up every once in a while when we're trying to look for people. But we really want to create a space where it's inviting and people want to be involved in the festivals and the parties and the feasts that we do as a school. And so our parents have done a tremendous job of seeing that vision and an opportunity to serve within our school. But we still very much say that all of our parents, all of our students are truly pioneers, and will be for a long time. And putting that in front, the parent community is a piece that we could never have designed and intentionally put in place. So other than the prayer and the partnership, we've been immensely blessed. We can design school colors, we can design the curriculum, we can put mascots in place, and we can establish our rhythms and our procedures throughout the school day and train our teachers and take them to content and take them to pedagogical training. But to partner well and see families that come in and say, we want to roll up our sleeves and help is something nothing short of the Lord's work in bringing the right people to us as our school's gotten started. And that's pretty universal across our families. There's a really sweet desire to help Anthem grow, and we can't do it alone. And they've stepped up great.
Good. I know, like the common thing in churches, they say like 20% of the people do 80% of the work, or like that.
Price's law.
Wow.
Price's law sociology says that square root of any group of people does half the work. So if you have a group of 100, 10% do, or 10 people do 50% of the work.
Yeah,
that's Price's law.
And I've heard that for schools, but I typically hear the private schools, specifically the Christian schools, their number is higher. It's a higher threshold, usually, from what I've heard from like just a regular random just public school that's there with 1,000 kids or something. So
Sure.
I love hearing that more people are engaged like you guys are having. That's awesome.
Oh yeah. It's wonderful. We got grandparents that are coming to read to kindergartners that they don't even have a kindergartner in the school and they want to come read. And it's just those kind of things that you couldn't require and build better if you tried. It's organic. It's beautiful. Families want to be here. And that's a tremendous blessing to us.
Love it. Well, I know some of those challenges even sounded really good. So do you even have anything good to share? Like bragging, let's brag. The next part is like, what's going really good. Brag about what's happening at Anthem.
Yeah. I think some things that we talked about earlier, when you're talking about Latin, you're talking about language, our curriculum, and our teachers are world-class. They're unbelievable. The Lord's been so good to us in bringing the right people to join our staff and really be here for that. I know that's not a tangible takeaway for someone else to say, how do I get a good staff? We hire early in our season. We want to hire as best as we can. We invest in professional development pretty heavily in terms of our operational budget. And I hope our teachers feel that. The feedback that we've gotten is that that's the case. We have advanced degrees on our young growing staff. We have experience. We have enthusiasm and initiative. And it's just a tremendous group that truly wants to see our mission lived out every day and takes it as a personal charge to do so, and to live that out. They understand what we're asking our portrait of a graduate to look like and our portrait of a faculty member. And they want to see Anthem grow in such a way that will be greater than any of us. And so I would just say I've been in education now for 15, 16 years. I guess this is 15. And so I don't think I've ever seen a staff pound for pound per person level of buy-in and level of missional lock that we have here. And not just we want to do it, but are struggling, truly saying I'm going to champion every aspect of my curriculum and every aspect of what we do. And so our staff is truly a blessing to me each and every day to come and watch and see how they've taken the ideas that we had 4 years ago and say, this is what we want to be. And they run with and champion them in the classroom each and every day. And then awesome. Our staff does it, and they do a tremendous, tremendous job. So that's something I brag on pretty regularly. Our staff is I would say second to none. I'd put ours up pound for pound against anybody's. And that's a testament to their work, a testament to our other, Jenny Martin's a co-founder. She's a director of curriculum, and she does a tremendous job in putting that in front of our teachers and equipping them and getting what they need. I think the other piece that's going really well for us right now is really an excitement about the future. It's easy to say that, but it truly is part of what we have. And so a lot of schools wrestle with that K through, or that really 6th through 8th grade group. And what does high school look like? And actually that group for us is growing faster than anything else.
Oh.
So we're seeing this 4 through 7th grade influx right now that corresponds with an end of elementary school around here for the public school system. Okay. Kind of the limitations of homeschool environments, but there is a desire to be here and an investment within our families to make that happen. So it gives us a lot of confidence in saying we're going to build a high school and we're going to make it robust and exciting, and a place where our students thrive. And in classical education, it goes from the grammar, the facts, the essentials of content, to the thinking about what is good and what is true, and then to be able to cultivate those ideas out of the facts and into something beautiful, whether through the actual art of rhetoric and public speaking and be the good man speaking well, or it is the presentation of their own ideas as it looks in light of both the historical and the modern, and to be able to criticize or inform or persuade well. The rhetoric school in classical education is truly that capstone that we want to capture. And it's exciting for us to look at the next 4 years and see us really be able to bring that to life here at Anthem, and really to serve Northwest Arkansas the way we can.
Love it. I know you shared this when we were in Missouri at that conference, but can you speak into what you guys do real quick for like this teacher development, like how you guys focus on that? So anybody's listening going, oh man, what should I do for teacher development? And the other piece was, how are you finding the teachers that you have? Is there any like secret sauce you figured out here in this first 4 years of like, man, we found these good people by doing this?
Sure. It's great. Two good questions. The secret sauce in terms of development is not a real big secret. It's just simply making the tension decision to invest in it. And so we have teacher time that we still ask of our staff to commit double, without getting too far into the contractual details, the employment agreements and things like that. We ask them to commit double what the surrounding public schools do for professional development time throughout the year. And so we invest to send them on a rotating schedule, but to send them to a national conference. We attend a regional conference as a staff every year. And those are just pedagogical informed ideas around how do we do classical education well. But we invest in online resources, put them in cohorts, put them in access to training modules that Hillsdale, Classical U, other places put out. And sometimes they can get pricey. And as a founding school, you are counting every penny and making sure that everything lines up the way you do. But if you invest well in your staff, they will carry your mission with them into your classrooms and into the lives of your students. So that's one pedagogically. I think the other is that we, again, put a lot of space into 4 days of intensive phonics training. And I know other schools do these things. These are not exclusive to us. But it is a mindset that we're going to develop and grow as practitioners of the great conversation and the idea of classical education, whether that be through the content that we're seeking to master, whether that be through living out our faith in front of our students and wrestling with that before the eyes of God and man, and or developing best classroom practices to help our students be successful. And I think that all of that encompassed into we want to see the best in each other. And so there's a chance to grow and help. And third grade teacher helps a kindergarten teacher, and a first grade teacher goes down and teaches a fourth grade lesson because something clicked in the sub, or it's just this very much of we're here on mission together. And that's permeated through everything. And then the idea of recruiting being one of, how, obviously being a faith-based school, we're going to say, do you love the Lord? Do you love kids? Do you align with the idea of how do we not just produce factory workers? How do we produce thinkers, speakers, people that ask good questions, young men and women who lead well in their homes, who will serve their communities, who will love their families and their churches? That's who we're after. And then there is do you like to read? Do you enjoy deep conversation? Do you enjoy the exchange of ideas? Can you do and balance the active life and the contemplative life and the restful one? Admittedly, that's something I struggle with. And I'll tell our staff, there's a restful piece that has to be part of this, or that axe isn't sharp and we don't cut much wood. So that's a component that we try to balance across all those things. So we're really after those people. There's not necessarily a particular vein that we find that does that well. Some have been in classical education for a long time. Some are public school teachers who recognize something different needs to happen. Some of them are brand new out of college. I guess something we've been excited about is this year we've been able to hire 3 or 4 of the 7 that I mentioned that had experienced a classical Christian education for themselves, that they graduated from a K through 12 classical Christian school, and to see those things integrate is a true blessing to us. And so that's something that I think will pay long-term dividends in terms of trying to find those who not only like the ideas of our movement, but experienced it for themselves. And the pool is growing large enough because there has been such a resurgence of this model of education. Now there are more that are wanting, not only that graduated with it, but are wanting to get back into the classroom and carry that for the next generation.
That's awesome. Well, awesome. So to wrap up the episode, I want to end with one final question for you. And I know it's hard to usually just do one here, but
I know I can be long-winded. Go ahead.
All right, let's see it. So if you were to share one piece of advice with the other school leaders that are listening, what would that one piece of advice be for you?
Oh, that's good. Yeah, one piece. There's a lot. There's a lot of places I would go. Train. I think I'd probably stay in that vein. Treat and train your people really well. Invest in their development. Invest in their opportunities. Take opportunities. Ask them to lead. Ask them to lead each other. But invest in your people. And if you find someone who's not your people, but are in your school, then there's a polite and a good professional way of saying, this isn't it, and we release you and we want you the best for you, but this isn't the right place. And if you come to that point, then do so quickly. But really it is, how do we put every opportunity in front of our staff? Hire good people, train them, invest in them, remove obstacles. Sometimes that's their own and sometimes that's external from them, and then let them champion their cause in their classroom, equip them to do so and get out of the way.
It's good, because if you get a bad teacher and you keep them in too long, that can cause some crazy problems for you down the road.
That's true. Yeah. Hire right, hire best.
Yeah.
And train them, invest in them. That's a big piece. And I think we've done that well.
Sounds like you're doing just fine, Ryan. You guys are doing great.
Appreciate it.
I want to thank you for taking time. I know you guys are in the middle of the school, or not middle of the school year, but middle of the day. You started the school year, you guys are busy, but you took an hour out of your time to hop on a podcast to chat with me. So I just want to say thank you, and want to say you guys are doing awesome. From what I've heard and what I've seen, you guys are doing amazing things, and I'm loving to see the next few years what you guys are going to be able to do there in Arkansas. So thank you for your friendship, and thank you for hopping on the podcast with me today.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Mitchell. I appreciate it, and proud to call you a friend.
Well, another huge shout out and a thank you to Ryan for taking time and being on the podcast today. I love what him and this whole team are doing at Anthem there in Arkansas, and I'm wishing them nothing but the best as they continue to grow that school and educate the next generation that's coming behind us. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, these are one of my favorites to do, and when I know the people personally and I love them dearly and I love what they're doing, their mission, their vision. And that is definitely the case with Ryan and his family over at Anthem. So if you haven't checked them out, you can go check out their website and read some of the stuff that they're doing, because they're doing some really, really cool things. But you guys know this, as always, every single week on these episodes, I'm hoping you take at least one thing away from each episode that you can take back to your school or yourself to make yourself or your school better than you are right now. And I'm hoping there was at least a couple things you guys can take from that episode that you can do just that. In addition to that, we are always wanting you to be a better version of yourself and your school to be a better version of than what you are right now. And one of the ways we try and do that is 3 free resources that we provide here at School Success. And the first one being the podcast that you're listening to right now. Make sure you are tuning in every Monday as we drop each new episode on Mondays. We want to make sure you're hearing from these guests that we're having, that they're taking the time out of their day to just give you their insight, give you their knowledge. And we want to make sure you're able to take some of those things back. If you need to, listen to the podcast on 1.5 speed or 2 speed. I know that's what I do when I listen to podcasts, so I can listen to more content quicker. And if you need to, you can always rewind and listen to it again, which is awesome. So this is that free resource we get to give you guys. The other one is on our website, schoolsuccessmakers.com. In the top right-hand corner at the moment, you can go there to sign up for the School Success Report. That gets sent out on Mondays, and it's an email of different articles. We're going to eventually do some giveaways and some fun community things inside that email, but we do different articles. We highlight some different teachers and community people inside that email. We want to make sure you guys are getting that and not missing out on any of it. So sign up for the School Success Report on our website. And the third free resource is our community on Facebook called School Success Makers. If you're not yet on there, I want you to go personally join in there, because I'm personally in there. Would love to meet you, see what you're doing, see what you're doing at your school. And then feel free to ask questions in there and talk to the different people that are in our community. We would love to have you. But we got great resources for you that we want you to get plugged into and continue to grow and be a better version of yourself. And that's what we're here to help you do. So with that, we will be back here next week with another amazing guest as usual on the School Success Podcast. We'll see you then. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of the Herzog Foundation.